Warning, this podcast contains spoilers, but you shouldn't care. Welcome to Hey James, Watch This, a celebration of mediocrity. In this, and indeed every episode, Russ and Fry will try to convince their friend James why he should watch an absolutely unnecessary film. Hey James, Watch This.
Hi everybody, welcome to Hey James, Watch This. I am James.
I'm Russ.
And I'm Fry.
And today I want to talk about Satanic Panic, which you convinced me to watch last time. I have a few notes. And then I have let's call it an admonition for you two gentlemen.
Oh, and I am prepared for this admonition.
I am sure you are. Okay, so Satanic Panic was a great movie. It was funny, it was clever, it was full of cheese, it knew exactly what it was. And so I'm just going to go through my notes first. The guy's face becomes the logo in the beginning. That was pretty funny. You remember that? Where it outlines his face and zooms out? That's something I don't think I've ever seen that in a movie. The little comment about the old lady's sweater smelling like racism was I laughed pretty heartily at that. It's called Mill Basin, by the way. You couldn't remember what they called it in the movie.
Highland Park is now Mill Basin.
Yeah.
Yes, Mill Basin. You didn't mention how they discovered she was a virgin. It was because she was busking.
and they ask her.
Yeah.
Are you a virgin? I don't think that's any of your business. She's a virgin. Get her.
She goes, that's a personal question. They're like, yeah, virgin. And then the comment from the rich kid about how she eats government cheese. I'm like, where did you dig that one up from?
Remember when Rebecca Romaine captures her and blows powder from just powder that wasn't previously there?
Yeah, does she just carry that powder just all the time in case she needs to knock out a virgin?
Pocket sand. It's like the old heels from like 80s wrestling, like when Hulk Hogan would be fighting like Jake the Snake, and Jake would reach into his pocket and pull out powder and throw it in Hulk's face.
Yeah.
Okay, so also I like that they went old school with the salt thing. It doesn't keep demons away; they just have to count it all. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, usually they just everyone else just is like, oh, you can't cross the line of salt. I thought that was a nice added touch there.
Well, no, I mean they're doing the original version, which was they have to count it.
And the whole thing is that demons are big on rules.
Yes,
the rule of Sam, such as it is.
I love the way that came back with the rule of Sam's,
or was it Code of the Sams? I can't remember.
Yeah.
The Code of the Sams, I think. Yeah. The character Danielle is absolutely the best. The silent helper for the big bads. Just it's every time they turn the camera to her, it's hilarious. She just has the funniest expression on her face. The child acting was pretty good. I was impressed.
Oh yeah, the one that was playing the
She
demon.
She did a great job. I didn't care for the end as much, but I liked the film so much. It didn't really take me out of it or anything. Now we have to get to the admonition that I mentioned in the beginning. This is not an unnecessary film. This is a clever film. It should exist. I'm glad that it's in my video library, and I think you guys need to push yourselves harder. More of a challenge. Not as good of a film.
I disagree, and here's why. So, name a better satanic horror movie. Rosemary's Baby. Name a better comedy horror. Well, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Name a better satanic horror comedy. Ready or Not, The Babysitter, Jennifer's Body. All of those things did this and did it better.
But they didn't do it in 18 days for $1 million. Imagine what this director could do if you gave her more budget.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think this film...
And now, when you're talking about unnecessary movies, you have to include some qualifiers there. So, like, you can't do bad movies. Like, you can't do Manos, The Hands of Fate. You can't force people to watch that. Or movies that are like... Or movies like The Room that are so bad that they become good again.
Correct.
The unnecessary movies hover around the 50% mark on like aggregators. Satanic Panic on and the big three that I use usually when I'm picking shows for this podcast are Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Metacritic.
Okay.
Just because they kind of aggregate everything. And so Satanic Panic scores a 62 on Rotten Tomatoes, which puts it lower than Hobbs and Shaw and Life. it scores better than Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and better than King Arthur Legend of the Sword.
So this is right in the middle of all the movies.
Right.
I suppose I have to be fair in that you can't really know what the movie's like until you see it. But my admonition still remains.
But wait,
I don't care what the public thinks. This movie was really good, and I think a little too good for the show.
there's more.
Okay.
IMDb. And Rotten Tomatoes isn't the public. Rotten Tomatoes is film critics.
Yes.
IMDb is the public. So, Hobbs and Shaw, 6.4, Life, 6.6, Jurassic World, 6.2, King Arthur, 6.7, Satanic Panic, 5.6.
Yeah, I guess I just disagree with that score.
Again, Metacritic. Satanic Panic score ties for second lowest. The only one it beats is another one you liked, King Arthur Legend of the Sword.
That's a mighty good defense. But I still think that we should be looking for more challenging
But wait,
films.
there's more.
Okay.
And this enters into one of my philosophical arguments for this week. and it's something called wisdom of the crowd.
Okay.
Now, if you're unfamiliar with this concept, the wisdom of the crowd suggests, and I'm quoting here, a large group's aggregated answers to questions involving quantity estimation, general world knowledge, and spatial reasoning have been found to be as good as and superior to the answer given by any individuals within the group. So, for example, say you're at the county fair, and you have the big jar of jelly beans.
Yes.
And you have to guess how many jelly beans are in the jar. And if you are the closest, you win the jar of jelly beans.
Okay.
So if you take the wisdom of the crowd and average all the crowd's answers together, you get closer than any random individual person. And so that's why review aggregators are necessary for this kind of thing.
So here's what I'm going to say to that. When I was 10 years old, I guessed the height of a mast on a sailing ship that we were sort of visiting as a family. And I wanted a drink, which I couldn't get because I was a kid. It was a drink from the bar. So I don't care what the crowd thinks.
Well, you're going to need to because, and you're going to love this one, the movie that we chose for you this week scores better than both Satanic Panic and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom on Metacritic, and it scores better than Satanic Panic, King Arthur, and Jurassic World on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay. Well, in that case, why don't you tell me what you have for me this week, gentlemen?
Fry, let's talk about Body at Brighton Rock.
That's right, The Body at Brighton Rock. A story about really you're how do you even jump into this one?
Story.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely bogarting the conversation at this point, and I'm going to let you do the summary. But I wanted to bring up, I love perfect movie titles. I think that when a movie is titled perfectly, you've sold half the movie. And so, and I think it was Patton Oswalt who said this: the best movie title in history is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Because you know everything. What kind of movie am I going into? Yes, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, I know exactly what I'm
I will admit that Body at Brighton Rock is an intriguing title.
Yes. And so Star Wars.
And so Fry can tell me about the plot.
So Body at Brighton Rock follows a park ranger. I forget her name. Rusty, do you recall her name? Whitney. Okay.
What? No, Windy.
Windy. That's right, Windy. So Windy is a park ranger who generally doesn't do like the harder trails or anything like that. She works in the gift shop. She maintains the kiddie trails and stuff like that. Today she is trying to switch jobs with a friend because her friend wants to hang out at the office a little bit.
Right.
And so they're like, her friends are like, no, you can't do this trail. You're not ready for this. She's like, fuck you. I'm just as qualified as you guys. I can do this. And she heads off into the wilderness, heads deeper in than she usually goes, and gets to the peak of what she believes is Hitchcock Trail or
Hitchback Mountain.
Yeah, Hitchback Mountain. And takes a selfie to show her friend, like, hey, look, I can get here. No big deal. The friend texts back, where are you? That's not Hitchback Mountain. And who's that behind you? And so she turns around, she sees a body down at the bottom of this mountain she's climbed, and so realizes that she's now somewhere in the woods that she doesn't know with a dead body. She immediately calls for aid, but the day is getting, it's near the end of the day. The person back at the ranger station says, look, you're going to have to stay there overnight, secure the body. We got to get some people out there to see what happened to it. You're going to have to stay there, make sure nothing happens to it. And then we'll be out there, first thing at sunup to get you out of there. It's a 6-hour hike. It's only a couple hours left in the day. You're just going to have to tough it out.
So I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
At this point, I think I know where the movie's going. Am I wrong?
Yes. You could not be more wrong.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I can assure you, you will not predict exactly where this movie is going.
Okay.
I will say the cover art for the movie, if you're just looking this up, features Wendy face to face with a giant bear. We see the bear casts kind of a shadow over the whole movie. At the very beginning, the head ranger is saying, hey, watch out. There's a lot of active wildlife out there. Be careful. The movie focuses in on how some of the statues and stuff at the ranger station are like, bears saying, hey, watch out for wildlife and stuff. It wants you to know there's bears in these woods. And plus, there's massive, claw marks that, I'm not a bear expert. I don't think any of us on this podcast are bear experts. Those claw marks seem vastly larger than a bear should be.
I was wondering why Wendy was so worried about what Wolverine had done to that tree.
Yeah, it looks like Wolverine just hated this national park.
And when bears do their scratchy thing on trees, like it carves up the whole side of the tree. Like it's not claw marks. They just scratch their backs on it.
They remove a whole bunch of the bark from it, yeah.
Now, I have left off one other key part of the setup of this movie that, I don't know, it's just this quick line, but it adds so much to what's to come.
Okay.
As she heads out and she's, talking to her friends, I think she was texting her friends. The movie relies heavily on texting for the first half hour or so. One of her friends says, be careful, these woods are haunted. And she's like, what? And they're like, oh, no, we're just kidding, it's fine. So, as she heads off into the wilderness, the two things in the back of her mind are, there are bears and the woods are haunted.
So, this sounds like a pretty good start for a horror film.
It does.
What I want to know is how they mess it up.
Well, golly.
You don't have to be super specific if you'd rather save some things, but tonally.
Yeah, I don't want to give away the whole game.
Sure, yeah, I'm fine with that.
You should see this movie because what you are watching is a short stretched out to be 90 minutes long.
Yeah,
okay. It's so short. It's actually just under 90 minutes. It may be the shortest movie we've watched.
Yeah, it's 1 hour and 27 minutes long. The reason I picked this movie, Fry, is because, among other things, the director and writer is an individual named Roxanne Benjamin. And she was produced. So, and I don't have guilty pleasures in movies. Like if I like a movie, I just like it. And one of my not guilty pleasure horror movies are the first two VHS movies.
Oh, those are cool. I like those.
The VHS movies are compilation horror, and they're just shorts.
I genuinely like those too. I don't think it's a guilty pleasure. They're very creative.
So she worked as producer on the first two VHS movies, and then she directed a short in another compilation film done by and starring all women called Double X, and I think her short was called Don't Fall, and that short was like 10 minutes long, and it was a little bit of a monster movie, and with 10 minutes she did, like, you can tell it's a first attempt, but it was like, oh, this is someone to keep an eye on,
right?
So then I saw she's written and directed this full-length picture. However, her experience is doing shorts.
Her strength is doing the shorter films.
Yeah, that does come through.
If you want to appreciate establishing shots where they just establish the hell out of this shot, man, like, about 55% of this movie could be a screensaver.
Yeah, there's some really great landscape shots. It's clearly a lovely park.
It's more of an ad for the park than it was a horror film.
And that's the thing, that they never tell you where they are.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Like it's called Brighton Rock Park, but it's like Brighton Park, Wyoming, and it was filmed in California, as it turns out.
Oh.
But as far as like establishing where this place is,
all right. Thank you, Russ. Fry, why should I watch this film?
So one thing that kind of came to my mind as I was watching this. So, James, do you do a lot? Have you ever camped? Have you ever gone camping?
Yes, when I was younger.
Okay, I don't do a lot of camping. I'm sure that comes as a shock to absolutely nobody.
We're all dedicated indoorsmen here, I think.
I would say yes, that my strengths lie inside in cities with lots of people around.
Close to comforts.
So I will say I went on, not really a camping trip, but it was I was sleeping in a tent. I was out a little bit away from the city about a year ago.
That sounds like camping.
I mean, there were a lot of people around. It was outside of a Renaissance fair, so it's not exactly camping.
Nerd.
Glamping.
I hate for anyone to listen to this and I've just ruined their view of me. I'm actually quite a nerd.
Says everyone sitting here.
Yeah, I think they figured that one out.
I definitely recall late at night this feeling of like, the campgrounds had gotten quiet. We're pretty far out from the city. If something were to happen, if someone were to get injured or get sick or something like that, help is a ways away. Like actual real help is, in the city, you pretty much imagine, something goes wrong. I can call emergency services and they'll be here in a matter of minutes.
Well, Fry, you'll notice that all hospitals are indoors.
That is true. That feeling of like being out there, being by yourself, and you start inventing like worst case scenarios that could come up, and like how would you deal with them? Like how would you like that sort of terrifying yourself because of the situation you are and how isolated you are. This movie really does that. Like there are other things in the woods to be afraid of. Her fear is not entirely invented.
I mean, bears seem fair. Like,
yeah.
I think being scared of bears is okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's almost like the bigger challenge she has is keeping herself calm and safe in the woods. Like, obviously, yes, there's a bear.
Right.
Spoiler alert, there is actually a bear. So it does show up.
She's definitely going to have to deal with a bear at some point.
Much more of the movie is just about, being lost in the woods by yourself and waiting for help, and help is
and also there's a dead
away.
guy.
And also there's a dead guy.
Can I make a guess about this movie?
Sure.
You can.
It's not very subtle, is it?
It's not very subtle.
Yeah.
I read one review that mentioned that it felt like it was just set pieces that were put together. Like where it was where it was like, here's an idea, and here's an idea, and here's an idea, and now we're going to just put them together movie style.
Do you think that also comes from the director's background is doing
Definitely.
Shorter films? Yeah. I personally prefer shorter horror films most of the time. I think that they're a better experience. There's a few exceptions like Event Horizon, but for the most part, shorter horror films are better more often just because I think it's harder to maintain that atmosphere in a full-length feature film. There are exceptions. Babadook was pretty good.
I will say I definitely could see this being like more enjoyable if it were divided up into like, here's one short that's just about this, here's one short that's just about that, instead of trying to combine them all together into one single movie.
Well, it sounds like that, and also there's a bit of padding here.
It has definitely got some padding. I think we're 30 minutes in before the body shows up.
And oh yes, go ahead.
Why should I watch this movie?
So Wendy, the main character, is played by an actress named Karina Fontes, and in the opening credits it says introducing Karina Fontes, and it seems like she's had some minor roles before this one, but this is definitely her first starring role.
Okay.
And she occupies about 99% of the screen time. Like she is just constantly there.
Do you think she can carry it?
That's an interesting question, because the philosophical argument that I want to bring up that is reflected perfectly in this film is that of the tabula rasa, or the blank slate. First introduced by Aristotle and popularized later on by John Locke, the idea behind the tabula rasa, and if you like, I can quote a little bit here, particularly from the Locke philosophy. This is from Wikipedia.
Please.
As understood by Locke, tabula rasa meant that the mind of the individual is born blank, and it emphasizes the freedom of individuals to author their own soul. Individuals are free to define the content of their character, but basic identity as a member of the human species cannot be altered. And so the idea is when you are born, your mind is simply a blank slate. And it is through experience that you imprint on it what you're going to become. Now, I argue this in a larger film context because there are rules that movies will obey that, if examined in the real world, don't make any sense.
Okay.
So one of my personal favorites is if the camera can't see it, the characters can't see it.
Oh, like those old westerns.
Yeah, and so like if you're watching Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like people sneak up on other people in sweeping vistas
because they're just right out of frame. Yeah.
It's like high plane. You couldn't sneak. Like they would spot you a mile away, but because you're off camera, you can sneak up on them.
That does work in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah. This movie wouldn't have to worry about that. It's set in a forest, and so you're not going to have to worry about like that. But that's a thing that if you examine it critically, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah. In this case,
it's like Jason catching up with the teenagers when they're running.
Yeah, and he's walking.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah,
they do fall over a lot of roots. But so my argument for this movie is that Wendy as a character, when the movie starts, she is born. And she is a tabula rasa. Because she doesn't know how to handle anything.
When it comes to the nature in the forest.
No, even peopling. Yeah. Like she's introduced by being late to a meeting.
a meeting that she has run up to because her car died off screen. We never see this car. So rather than call in or anything like that, she has just sprinted the remaining few miles to get to work. And
every time she encounters a problem, she throws a stick at it.
Wait, what? Literally?
Literally. Like she's always just poking things with sticks.
Oh, man. This is a recurring theme for these movies, too, is people just poking stuff with sticks when they really shouldn't be.
At one point, there is a character, and I use the term loosely, a character is introduced that might be a murderer. Mm-hmm. The source of this body. She drops her radio at it. At one point, she has to use a lighter to start a fire. Okay. And it looks like she's just now being introduced to the concept of a lighter. Like it is completely intriguing. Yeah. And so I would and roughly the movie does kind of follow the hero's journey.
Right.
And so I was like, well clearly she must have had life experiences outside of this, but one would think not.
Right.
And if read from the context of this person has never had life experiences, because you get no backstory. Like her backstory is never expounded upon. Even in Satanic Panic, like there was that one kind of expository part where, what was her name?
Oh, the main character? I forget.
The main character. She was helping break that curse on that other girl, and she goes into her backstory of having survived cancer and this other and all like that.
She had met that boy and then he died.
None of that.
Yeah. That was really well done, by the way.
It was. Like that's character development done well. You get none of that with Wendy. She is just and I realized as I was watching it, like if you've ever played Half-Life, I mean Gordon Freeman doesn't say a single word. And he has more of a backstory than Wendy does. And
so we know he's an MIT graduate.
And so the only thing I can conceive of is that she was born when this movie started.
She emerged fully formed out of the mist with
she is a perfect tabula rasa.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. And I think that can totally work in a horror movie if it's about the moment-to-moment experience. But my question then is, how successfully do the two of you think that she carries us through this movie? Interesting pause.
I would have gotten somebody else.
Ah, okay.
I would have gotten I would have cast a woman in her like 40s or 50s who had like previously been a school teacher or something.
A little wiser, a little bit more, a little less naive, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the character, like, you would expect her to have some amount of like survival knowledge or hiking ability or things like that for being a fairly young person working as a park ranger. You know, like, yeah, as Russ was saying, if this was a like former retired school teacher taking a second job, you wouldn't necessarily expect that, and so her lack of any capability.
Because she was working out there near the park.
Yeah, like this person's job is to work for the park, and presumably this is not that, you know, what she winds up doing wasn't her assigned task for the day, but shouldn't be that far outside of her capabilities. where she has roughly the wilderness experience that I do.
Okay, let's do a level set. This doesn't sound like a very good movie.
And that's why you should watch it.
Can you expound on that?
Yes, because when it comes to unnecessary films, and one that is consistently ranked higher than the one that you enjoyed, this is precisely why you need to see it.
It doesn't sound anywhere near as interesting as Satanic Panic. It sounds like a woman wandering around in a forest doing an okay job at acting.
Well, the good news is she doesn't wander very much.
Yeah. Very little actual wandering occurs.
So it takes place within a 50 square foot part of a forest?
Pretty much.
Yeah. After you find the body, that's where you're going to be. Yeah, for the rest of the whole movie.
I think I'm less convinced now than before you tried to address that point. Yeah, I'm leaning away from this one, guys. Do you have anything that you want to throw in there and see if it'll convince me?
Definitely.
Okay.
All right. So the soundtrack is all over the place, and you definitely need just to experience the incongruity of this soundtrack.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is created by a band called The Gifted, and they may well be gifted, but they were not displaying that their gifts were not on display here. When this movie opens, you might as well have played a calliope. Like it could not have been better done.
Just theremin music for the entire runtime.
Yes, that would have been amazing. There's tons of jump scares. The movie relies on jump scares primarily.
Oh, I hate jump scares.
And they all come from incongruous sources.
Are they effective? Do any of them land, or can you kind of just?
They land like a sack of mud.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
And for this, I have let's see, I'm going over my notes here. Oh, electricity behaves differently.
Pardon?
Yes. Yeah. The electricity does not obey our laws of physics, so this might have been filmed in a parallel dimension.
Okay.
Because over the course of one cut, the cell phone battery plays a pretty good piece in Act 1. And over one cut, I noted Wendy's cell phone goes from 9% battery to 6% battery in the span of one cut. So electricity doesn't know what it's doing. I kind of wanted a caption running throughout the film that said "filmed on my iPhone X."
But what about all the panoramic sweeping shots?
Well, you can set up a tripod for that, but I don't think they sprung for the Steadicam rig on this one.
Does it have kind of a shaky cam vibe to it?
At times, but at times not. And being stuck in one place, like you can't but do the comparison to 127 Days. You know, the movie where James Franco cuts his arm off.
Oh, I've seen it.
Think that you can't move very far. You can sort of move, but you can't move very far, and The Rock is a dead guy.
Hold on a sec. The reason she isn't moving is because they know where she is and they're coming to rescue her? Is that why she can't move?
They know roughly where she is.
Yeah, let's talk about also how police response happens. I am not a search and rescue person. And maybe, and it could be, this wouldn't fall high on their list of priorities. I would think that if they found a dead body, they wouldn't be like,
probably want to get out there.
Oh, you're it's a 6-hour hike. Would you just sleep there? God,
it's going to be dark soon. We can't be bothered.
we can't be bothered. You want us to go there now? Like, it's going to be dark soon.
I was almost done for the day. Like, he almost
How long did they say she had to stay there? Was it overnight?
Overnight, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just, you want us to go... A helicopter? Oh, we can't call the police.
Helicopters are kind of expensive. I don't know if we can send one of them out.
God, we just... Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. This one sounds like kind of a dud to me.
And I thought you would say that, which was so timely as to why you took us to task for bringing to you a movie that was better reviewed than the one you liked. Awful.
You know, the problem is that, and obviously I will never know unless I watch it, but, you know, I won't be watching it for this show. But the problem is that, you know, I don't really care about what the review scores are. I'm going based off of your descriptions alone. I mean, because
that itself might be a reason for you to give this a shot, because, you know, we may not be doing a very great job of selling this movie. Reviewers out there clearly liked it.
I think you're doing a great job with rough material, guys. If anything, I applaud you.
But, I mean, you know, none of us here are professional movie reviewers. The actual professional movie reviewers...
Is there such a thing?
...rated this higher than several of the other movies we've watched over the last few weeks.
One of the problems with anyone who reviews any kind of art form, whether it be music or whether it be books or movies or video games, is that you have to find someone whose opinions can inform your personal tastes.
Yeah.
So when you point to like a Metacritic score or something like that, that's not convincing to me. You know, there are reviewers that I listen to for various things. Although I don't know if I have one for movies.
You have us?
Oh yeah, exactly. I don't need one. I have you guys. So I'm not relying on anything external. I'm relying on you two. And by the way, I think you've done a great job. I don't think there's any way for you to save this film. and be as truthful as you have been, is what it sounds like.
I want to give you a quote by Roxanne Benjamin, the writer and director.
Oh, sure.
And in reference to, well, Wendy, the main character.
Yeah.
She says, quote, "A character doesn't need to be likable. They need to be interesting." And I say to you, Roxanne Benjamin, please take your own advice.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm not going to watch this movie, and I will tell you why. I think it's important because you guys put a lot of work into this. I'm not going to watch this movie because it sounds like a somewhat inexperienced actress who may have a very promising career ahead of her, but when she made this film, maybe didn't have as much experience. Wandering around in a 10 square foot portion of the woods with what I'm guessing are questionable special effects, and it sounds like a kind of lame attempt at psychological horror and also a bear. And I don't think that I would be entertained by this movie.
The bear attack is the best thing since The Revenant. So since you're not going to watch it, let's talk about this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I actually went back and timed it. The bear attack takes 128 seconds of this 90-minute movie.
Wow.
That is all we see the bear.
And it looks like, again, shaky cam, it looks like she is kicking a model of a bear. Like, it could not be better filmed.
I knew it.
I love this. When it got to the bear scene, I stood up from my chair and laughed to the heavens. Like, it was the crowning glory on what was a turd sandwich.
I knew this was a stinker. I absolutely knew it.
Oh, it was so good.
She fights the bear off first with a can of bear mace.
Well, she tried that. She tried that on a zombie earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a zombie?
There's a zombie. She tries the bear mace on a zombie and then blows it back in her own face.
Yeah, it fails spectacularly. It at least affects the bear, but because she's previously used it to fight off this zombie, she does not have very much bear mace left, and so the bear is just mildly annoyed. And then, but then comes my favorite moment of this movie.
Yes.
She's like, oh, I'm out of bear mace, but I still have this can. So she breaks the top off the can. I have not had a can of bear mace. I don't think what she did is an accurate thing that can happen.
Okay.
She breaks the top off the can of bear mace. she pulls out the lighter that she'd previously been using to roughly get
well,
the
that
fire
she was
started.
struggling to use.
Yeah, she did a better job with it the second time. I guess she
makeshift
learned how
flamethrower, huh?
And briefly makes a makeshift flamethrower
Cool.
that the bear just kind of stands back from and is like, huh?
It casually steps out of the range.
This is annoying. I guess I'll eat you in a minute.
So, Fry, I have a question for you. Actually, for both of you. So now that we know I'm not going to see this movie, what is your real opinion of this movie? I'm curious.
It sucks.
I knew it.
Yeah.
It is so far gone.
I could not recommend this to anyone.
You guys, I want to stress that both of you did a really good job, because I was fooled until about halfway into your arguments. And then I started putting pieces together, and I was like, I don't think they'd be leaning on these review scores and all this other stuff if this movie was really good. They'd be telling me about the movie.
And funnily enough, I wasn't going to mention any review scores until you brought up the idea of unnecessary films and what makes an unnecessary movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, and by the way, I do think your criteria is fair. I think it's completely fair, because we don't know what they're actually like until we see them, right? So...
And for me, I love our introduction where we convince you to watch a completely unnecessary movie, because I firmly believe in art for art's sake, and
yes,
and I think that I don't think there are any unnecessary movies.
Yeah, it's kind of a term that we're coining, but we're just like, we're not saying the movies don't deserve to exist. We're just saying
it would be better if some of them didn't.
It would be better. Well, or if it would be better if they were made in. It would be better if they were better made.
It's surprising that some of these movies exist, and this I think is a surprising one. If you're looking for a bear fight in a movie, you can find, I'm sure, 100 better ones than the bear fight in this one.
Like Revenant.
That is actually what I went into this thinking of. It's like, oh yeah, I wonder if this is going to be, similar to that kind of bear fight.
Right.
And it's not.
But talk to any professional filmmaker. That you barely know if you're making something good or not.
Yeah.
Like until the moment Star Wars premiered, George Lucas was certain he had a dud on his hands.
Yeah.
And so it's like and that's why they're necessary. Like, of course, art for art's sake.
Oh yeah. I don't think we're here to crap all over. If anything, I think we're celebrating the mediocrity. As you pointed out, Russ, the director of this movie has put out some really good stuff. I liked VHS 1 and 2. I thought they were great. Not ironically, not guilty pleasure, genuinely interesting stories, doing something a little bit different each time, or actually wildly different each time. And they're weird. Yeah, they're fun. So a talented director, is what it is.
It is what it is.
Does anyone have a rant that they would like to go on about movies or TV or anything that you feel strongly about?
We have learned something about Fry.
Huh?
Oh.
Yeah, we were talking the other day, and I mentioned that what was my phrasing exactly? That I generally don't hate any movies.
You said that you look for the best in film.
Fry is the man who loves every movie.
Yes, every single film, all the time.
That's a very slight exaggeration, but as today has really, we had this conversation before I watched Body of Brighton Rock,
right?
But yeah, I mean, like the way I look at most movies is like, is it entertaining to me is of course the main thing I'm interested in with a movie, and a movie doesn't have to be the best movie around to be entertaining to me. But also, if a movie isn't entertaining to me, that's not really a strike against the movie. That's just it didn't work for me. Every movie is the result of dozens, if not hundreds, if not in some, for blockbusters, thousands of people working together.
Yeah.
A ton of work goes into these things. There's so many different ways you can look at a movie. Like, even looking at this one, the special effects may not be anything special, but the locations they chose for this, I think they chose a very nice, area. They presented it very nicely. There are things about the movie that can be well done, even if the overall thing does not come together. So, when I'm looking at a movie, I'm going to tell you whether or not I enjoyed it.
Right.
But there may be movies I don't enjoy that have particularly interesting sound design choices or particularly interesting shots or way of putting a movie together. The Guy Ritchie movies in particular, often have really interesting ways of telling the story that you don't find in other movies.
Yeah.
And so I guess those are little things I look for when I'm watching a movie that, even if it's not, a quote unquote good movie, there can definitely be good parts to make up that whole.
Fry, I think that's a beautiful and really interesting and unique way to look at movies.
Yeah.
I think
100%.
I might be the opposite. I care only about like 5 things in a movie, and the rest of it could be garbage and I wouldn't care and still love it. And I'm extremely hypercritical of them. So I think it's really cool that you're out there doing your thing and loving movies. I think
we
that's
need
wonderful.
Fry.
Yeah. This doesn't work without you, buddy.
This doesn't work without all 3 of us.
Yep.
Yeah. Russ, I think you're probably more like me, right? You're pretty critical, I think.
Well, I really enjoy my role on this, just because ferreting out nonsense, like the argument that I had today, which is complete bunk, but it's like a first year grad student, it's like that level of terrible. I love it, and I'm not saying the movie's that level of terrible. I'm saying my interpretation is that level of terrible.
No, I know what you mean. But you do such a good job with it because you are pretty convincing most of the time. The Tabula Rasa stuff, you had me. I was like, all right, I can see that. I mean, it's a basic concept, but all right, we can. But I mean, you were making up for deficiencies in the character. Good job.
What happens when a character has no backstory? Well, clearly they were written to be a proto-human.
Yeah.
Good job.
Born in the now.
All right, well done, gentlemen. Even though I didn't accept to watch it, I think you did a great job with what you had on hand. And also, I would also like to go back to, loop around to the beginning and say, shame on me for saying you need to challenge yourself. You clearly have already done that.
and don't worry, I've already got one in mind for you next week.
Oh, wonderful. So well done. Take a bow. All right. I think that's it for this week. Does anyone have any final thoughts they'd like to leave and everyone with?
Go vote.
Yeah, go vote. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Hey James Watch This. Have a great day, and don't drink bleach.